It is Wednesday night here. A little late night Wednesday night for us, Pete, man. But it is time for the UFC 254 DFS strategy show. What's going on, Pete? How excited are you right now for this pay-per-view?
I'm pretty excited, man. I'm so excited. I shaved my facial hair like a little bit like Khabib Nurmagomedov. I wish I had the headwear, but I couldn't find that anywhere. But I cannot wait for this fight, Jason.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've been kind of going back and forth on the main event. We'll talk a lot about the main event, as we do go on. Of course, we'll be here for 60, 75 minutes, depending on kind of how the listener questions do go here. But right now we want to get right into kind of some general questions that I did receive on my Twitter account. And first up, one of the questions we got was single entry GPPs and how to approach it here. And this is a kind of, I guess my general thought on GPPs is I'm okay. Who am I going to develop my roster around? Who am I building around? So to me, I think you got to look at the main event first and foremost. I think of, I think on both of these guys, I think there's there's value on both sides of this. I mean, obviously, I think Justin Gaethje has much more than a puncher's chance in this one. He could be interesting, I think, particularly on a FanDuel roster in terms of potential takedown stoppage. You think about Khabib and his takedown abilities, he only lands at about 46%. So I think there is some potential there, but to me, it starts with how you're gonna roster that main event in terms of your single entry.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a single entry tournament, I don't see how you get away from the main event. I mean, that's the whole reason why you're watching the card too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely want to have that action, because the worst thing in the world is when you fade the main event and you're, say, at the top of the leaderboard, and then everybody behind you, you're sweating like crazy, hoping that, they don't catch up to you. But, I think for single entry, you have to get there. I really do. Justin Gaethje at his price point in a 5-round fight with his fighting style, if he wins, he breaks the slate. Khabib Nurmagomedov, 9,200, takedown city. It's going to be a little bit more difficult in this matchup, but I still really like his price point. I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I think also when I'm thinking about GPPs and single entry, then it becomes of, okay, if I'm going to take Khabib Nurmagomedov, and let's just say on DK at 9,200, okay, now you got to start looking at some low price options and who that low price option should be. So to me, I think the first your thought is going to be is who's that high end price you're going with. If maybe it's Khabib or maybe it's someone else, and then you got to kind of figure out who is that under 7,500 option that you do take on, which I think kind of leads into another question that we got, Pete, is are we stacking the main event this week?
It's interesting. I'll probably have a few lineups with it just to test it out and see. I don't hate it, but if Khabib is going to, fight appropriate how he should, it should be a lot of grappling and not open mat wrestling, because open mat wrestling, I think Justin Gaethje will be able to compete pretty well. Against the cage is a totally different animal. And it really is. People don't understand how difficult it is against the cage, especially if you're not, used to it. And I know Gaethje has a lifetime of wrestling. But in order to stack the fight, right, Khabib has to do enough to pay off that 9,200 price tag, right? But Gaethje also has to do enough to outperform all these other 7K options. So you're talking about a small chance of that really occurring. It does happen, especially if it's a competitive 5-round event. You're thinking of, like a, scorecard going 3-2 some way. And, the underdog was able to really accumulate some stats. I'm going to try it in a few. But I think just, penciling in one of these guys is the right move.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. Another question that we got was in relation to FanDuel. And the question was, if you're doing 10 lineups, how many different fighters do you slot in the MVP? Of course, I was working on a piece that we're going to have up on Awesemo.com this week in terms of my rankings. And as I look at the fighters that I want to have, shares in MVP on FanDuel, both sides of the main event. Even though Khabib at $24, man, he's really got to pay off for that price. I mean, it's an expensive price you got to pay. But even Justin Gaethje at $18, I don't mind that. I think you have to look at the heavyweight fights. Volkov and Harris, and God, I hate to trust Struve or Tuivasa, but I think those are fights you got to look at, particularly as a first-round finish. You have to look at Ankalaev in that one. Maybe if you think Kutalaba can pull off the upset. But to me, I think those are the fights to really look at, and I'm sure there's probably some other fighters that you look at in terms of FanDuel as an MVP.
I mean, if I was ever playing on FanDuel, what I would do is, probably take some chances on some fighters that are going to be defending a ton of takedowns. So maybe Justin Gaethje is more of a FanDuel play where, in an MVP spot, if he can defend a ton of takedowns, you're talking about how crazy his score can get elevated because of that. Granted, he would still have to win the fight, but I wish Gaethje wasn't 18 over there. That's the problem with FanDuel is that they price up the main event. But there are some other fighters in here that if they could defend takedowns, you're looking at great potential in order to spend up in other spots.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that we always talk about. I mean, I hate the FanDuel pricing, in terms of how they price the main event, but I get it. I mean, look, if Justin Gaethje was, $12, $13, he'd be the most popular fighter on the card because everyone would take him.
Yeah, exactly. And, the main event, like on DraftKings, right? You really feel like, oh my God, Khabib should go in there and totally wipe out Justin Gaethje. But in reality, this is the number 1 against number 2 guy in the world. So, the price difference is a little drastic over on DraftKings. So if you do favor Khabib, you're really having to select him over other quality 9,000 options. If you favor Justin Gaethje, it allows you a lot of lineup flexibility.
Yeah, that's going to get into it, but let's get right into the main event. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje, lightweight title unification bout, 9,200 for Khabib on DK, 7,000 for Gaethje. We mentioned about the FanDuel pricing of 24 and 18. Then over in Super Draft, 1 times for Khabib Nurmagomedov, 1.45 times for Justin Gaethje. I mean, this is the one thing that we've always known that Gaethje has wrestling in his back pocket. We haven't seen it. He has been taken down twice. I believe that the statistic is he's been on his back 15 seconds in his UFC run. I mean, look, we both know that that is going to be the game plan. Watching the countdown show, I found it really intriguing, kind of as they talked about both sides of this fight, particularly about the relationship of the coaching aspect of it, of how close Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje are, and also obviously the dynamic with Javier Mendez, taking over everything with Khabib's father passing away earlier this year. And the one thing I found really interesting was they were showing footage from the Conor fight. And Javier Mendez, I want to say the term was, was it maybe father's plan?
Yeah. It's a great point because Javier Mendez is essentially a father figure to Khabib. And, this is a ton of stress in a situation like this. We saw Walt Harris in his fight against Alistair Overeem, with the death of his daughter. How is he going to respond to the pressures of stuff like that? Khabib does have a tendency to stray away from the game plan because he likes to show off that hard work that he's been grinding, man. Like he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but he's so dominant in the grappling area. And that's where you see Javier Mendez, to your point, what you were probably going to say is that, Javier Mendez is screaming at him, father's plan, father's plan. And I would hope that the emotion of this event doesn't get to Khabib Nurmagomedov, because if he slips up, Justin Gaethje will definitely take advantage of it. And if there's ever a time, Jason, to stick to father's plan and dedicate a fight to him, you would imagine it would be this. So, Justin Gaethje in a spot like this, so talented, will work back up to his feet. But us DFS players will welcome that. I will gladly see Justin Gaethje stand up and just keep getting taken down, rinse and repeat. I'm favoring Khabib in the matchup, and I think that despite the heavy price tag, I love him. I really do.
Yeah, there was a funny comment in the chat from Jordan. He goes, how tilted is everyone going to be when Fight Metric gives Khabib 13 out of 155 significant strikes? Oh, yeah.
I think there are certain fighters that they look at and they're like, okay, pitter patter, we're not considering that as significant. But what Khabib does, everything is significant. And, he has so much violence behind everything he does. The tenacity, everything. He could land 20 takedowns, Jason. We've seen him do that before in a 3-round fight. Can you imagine? There's levels to this. And I do think Justin Gaethje is super skilled. But Justin Gaethje has shown, a susceptibility to cardio as well. He fades as the fight goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you asked me the question earlier this week. You said, would you be surprised if Khabib knocks him out? And my general thought is, if it does happen, I think it happens later on in the fight. Of course, this is the UFC 254 MMA strategy show right here on Awesemo.com, and be sure to sign up for an Awesemo Plus Pass weekly pass for $29.95. You get all those premium content tools that myself and Pete use every week here on UFC events. But if you're just looking for MMA Pass, $8.95. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join to sign up for today. And, of course, when it comes to MMA, that Top Fires tool is definitely a tool that you want to use. It's a tool that myself and Pete use on the daily. But, I mean, look, I in terms of the main event, I think you have to have some shares of Justin Gaethje. I think you can't avoid it. Look, I think – on FanDuel, the $24 price tag is pricey, man. It is pricey. You're if you take Khabib over on FanDuel, you're gonna have to take some chances, and your hope is that he can score. To me, I think that Khabib is probably going to be chalk in terms of MVP. We'll kind of see how ownership dictates over the next couple of days. He's probably going to be the most popular MVP pick, but rightfully so. I think he should be. I mean, it's just stylistically, it's just an interesting fight because the pressure that Justin Gaethje is going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say the most obvious statement in the world, and salary will reflect ownership, right? So there will be casuals who see the highest priced person or something out there, player, and they will, just pencil them in and then try to make it work, whether they know the sport or not. A lot of players will try to get away from that expensive salary because it makes it very difficult for lineup construction. So like on FanDuel, I would be surprised to see Khabib Nurmagomedov's ownership to be crazy high because it's difficult to generate lineups over on FanDuel typically anyways. And now you're talking 24. The 5 rounds, it's totally warranted. So, I mean, if ownership comes out, Jason, and, our ownership is really, really accurate, if it comes out and he's low, take advantage of that. It's a very nice leverage play.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's something you got to look at in terms of this. We do got to mention, of course, we know Michael Chandler is in Abu Dhabi as a backup plan. Obviously we hope that nothing happens here, but I think we do have to kind of discuss of what happens if Michael Chandler has to step into this fight. I mean, he was kind of joking yesterday that he's like, hey, I guess I'm going to go to the arena. I'm going to have my gloves on. I'm going to be in my fight kit ready to go. Kind of break it down in terms of how Chandler would match up against either one of these guys.
Man, talk about a monkey wrench in a situation like that. We don't want to see that happen, but Khabib and some main events in quarantine, they haven't had the best of luck. If Chandler was to step in, I think that Justin Gaethje would have the most difficult time adjusting because Justin Gaethje's whole camp has been a lot on, wrestling defense. And if, say, Khabib was scratched and Michael Chandler comes in and is facing Justin Gaethje, now you're talking a guy who has equal punching power, equal boxing skill, overall MMA game, and can work takedowns as well. And that unknown factor is kind of, it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, if, say, Gaethje gets scratched for whatever reason, COVID or something, and Michael Chandler steps up, I think Chandler is very, very talented, but I think Khabib, it's pretty similar to facing Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. It should be an interesting one to see how that one does play out. Co-main event is Robert Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier. Basically, the way to describe this one, it's a number one contenders matchup in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya mentioned after his successful title defense that if Jared Cannonier had an impressive performance, he was next. Dana White about a week ago mentioned that he saw the winner of this matchup getting the title shot. Whittaker 8,000. Jared Cannonier 8,200. Then over on FanDuel, $17 for Jared Cannonier, $15 for Robert Whittaker. Then over on SuperDraft, 1.35 times for the former champion Whittaker, 1.3 times for Jared Cannonier. Obviously, this is your favorite fight of the night, the 8,200, 8,000. But break it down for us.
Man, so Jared Cannonier, man, talk about a guy who has really come down from the heavyweight division now, light heavyweight, now middleweight. I mean, the guy is, the transformation over time is incredible, and he looks absolutely shredded. To think that that guy was a couple weight classes higher is crazy. And now that he's at 185 pounds, he looks, comfortable. It doesn't seem like he has a hard problem making the weight. His skills have really elevated over time. With this price range, Jason, it's always a very pivotal matchup because, it's borderline 7K that in a win could really outperform their salary and break the slate. So you have to be very careful with this. You have a significant discount with Robert Whitaker, who, before Israel Adesanya has looked like a machine. Like he really has, ever since that Stephen Wonderboy, loss, he's been on a roll, and then, gets caught by Israel Adesanya, and then has a nice turnaround fight against Darren Till. Looked pretty good in there, but did get dropped. And I was actually favoring Till in the matchup just based on, I thought, the damage of the Yoel Romero fights had really taken its toll on Robert Whitaker, which it probably still has. We did see him get rocked and get dropped, and he does have the ability to do the same to his opponent. Like, he's so skilled everywhere. Like, he has underrated grappling. If I was Robert Whitaker, I would be chaining takedowns together, because standing there and striking with Jared Cannonier, the guy hits too hard, especially if you've been dropped by plenty of people and hurt by plenty of people. So it's an interesting matchup, man, but I'm actually favoring Jared Cannonier here, despite being 6-4 in the UFC. Whitaker has the 12-3 UFC experience, advantage here. I just think Cannonier's on the rise. I really do. And I know Whitaker's only 29. This is kind of make or break for Jared Cannonier at 36.
Let me ask you this. Who's got the better boxing?
I would say Cannonier. And the reason I would say that is because, like, Whitaker has very good hands, but they're deceptive angles. I don't like so much how his hands are always so low. With his hands being so low, they come from odd angles, and you catch a lot of people with back fists and, upper jabs and all this stuff that, they're not normally accustomed to seeing. But as far as crisp striking, I think Jared Cannonier takes it. I really do. He has great kicks as well. And I don't think he makes as many defensive mistakes as Robert Whitaker kind of does. Mm-hmm. You get used to getting away with these things of keeping your hands low because you got big gloves on when you're sparring in the gym, or you've been on a roll in the UFC. I mean, who am I to tell Whitaker how to fight? But, if I'm sitting there poking holes at things, I do see holes in Whitaker's defense. So I'm thinking Jared Cannonier can exploit it and get a W here.
I guess my question with Jared Cannonier is, look, I think there's no doubt in my mind he's got the power advantage, but what happens if he can't get the knockout in first 7 minutes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what's very interesting is how this is a 3-round fight. Who does that favor? Whitaker, maybe he starts off slow and, thinks that he has rounds in the bank, whereas he can, resort to the final push of the final 2.5 rounds or whatever to kind of steal the victory. If he falls behind from a fast-paced, aggressive Jared Cannonier, mm-hmm. He may run out of time. And I don't know if I really see a finish coming in this fight. You would imagine. But I do think that regardless of how the fight goes, it's a very important fight to target.
No, I'm with you on that one. It's from the price point aspect, to me, is where I'm kind of looking at it and I'm saying, man, this is a price point I think that you have to look at. I just, it's my only fear is that in a GPP scenario, if this fight goes 15 minutes, is it optimal?
It's very tough to say if it's just striking, because they don't have like crazy high volume. Actually, Robert Whitaker has the volume edge at 4.5 strikes per minute. But, what's interesting is kind of like the new shiny toy comes around and everybody likes the new shiny toy, and you forget about the old reliable toy, which former champion Robert Whitaker, 8,000 price range. You're talking about an affordable fighter on this slate. So, don't overlook it. I don't think it's a bad play either way. I think this is a very important matchup. And it's really just who shows up that night. I think the reach advantage, the 4-inch reach advantage of Cannonier could cause some issues to Whitaker. So I'm excited for the fight, but we'll have to see.
Here's the other thing we got to mention about with this Fight Island card. It is not, 6 a.m. in the morning. This is prime time in Abu Dhabi, so this will be like a normal pay-per-view start time. So, these fighters have not had to, basically they could be on Abu Dhabi's schedule as opposed to staying on the U.S. schedule or wherever they may live in the world. I think that's another thing to kind of remember because this is an afternoon pay-per-view here, so something to kind of think about in terms of this one. I mentioned earlier on the show that I think you have to look at these heavyweight fights on this card. Let's talk about the first one here of Alexander Volkov and Walt Harris. Volkov 8,600 on DK, 7,600 for Walt Harris. Over on FanDuel, 17 for Volkov, 15 for Harris, and over on SuperDraft, 1.25 times for Volkov and 1.45 times for Harris. You think about Walt's fight earlier this year against Alistair Overeem. I mean, look, he was close to winning that fight. And then just the gas tank got out here. I mean, look, to me, you tell me who's a better mixed martial artist, it's Alexander Volkov. I think there's not a doubt in my mind he's a better one. But to me, when I say who's got the power advantage, it's Walt Harris.
Yeah, and what's crazy is I just had to really just check and make sure I didn't have a typo. Volkov's 31 and Harris is 37.
Yeah.
Like, that really blows my mind. I feel like Volkov's been around for so long, but it goes to show you at 31 and 8, the guy has a wealth of experience. He's so talented. He's the better fighter here. And there's no question. He's the better fighter here. Overall, he's the better striker. He has the better experience. He's fought the better opponents over the years. Walt Harris, I shouldn't say he's a one-trick pony, but he's very good at what he does. He's an early finisher. So, I mean, at 7,600, you're talking about a guy that really hunts for finishes and goes for it. Perhaps he makes some adjustments because you saw what happened in the Alistair Overeem fight. You kind of punch yourself out of situations. And, each fighters need to make adjustments. That's how you improve. That's how you really start to, eliminate all of your holes in your game. And, it's a checklist. So maybe this is going to be a part of his checklist that he's going to try to fix. But dealing with the height and the reach of Volkov is a very tough task. Now, let's also think back when Volkov fought Greg Hardy, right? Mm-hmm. Greg Hardy really had no business being in that fight. He really had no business being in that fight. Walt Harris is a lot better than Greg Hardy and hits a lot harder than Greg Hardy. If Harris connects, Volkov's going out. Like, he really is. Whereas Volkov in a victory, Jason, I don't think that he's probably one of the best plays on the slate. He's priced, mid-range, 8,600. I think he would have to do a lot, because outside of Harris gassing and taking advantage, a decision's probably not going to do it there at that price range.
No, I mean, I think I like the value of Walt Harris, but I also understand there's a reason he's an underdog in the fight. There's a reason for it. I would say I like him more on the DK side of the things than I do the FanDuel side of things. I just think there's a little more value over on DK. But, look, Volkov, you think about last week, Jessica Andrade was a slate breaker last week. If you had Jessica Andrade in your lineup, okay, all right. I mean, come on. You trying to do that Donald Trump dance over there? Need to put a little face of paint on for you?
That's good. Hey, man, I like Jessica Andrade, and she came through. Beautiful body shot. Did I see that happening? No. You know what I mean? Like, that's why MMA is the most unpredictable thing in the world. I probably thought it was going to be heavy punches and takedowns. But, I get what you're saying. I mean, Harris is 6-7 in the UFC. Volkov is one of the best heavyweights out there. It's the truth. He really is. He's so technical, striking. He was outclassing Derek Lewis. He really was. And then he gets hit with one bomb, and the same thing could happen here. But, the smart play is Volkov. Mm-hmm. GPP territory, it's Harris because, when he wins, it's early.
Yeah, but I think it's a fight that you do have to look at potentially rostering here. Next up, we got Malkoun and Hawes. Hawes 9,100. What's your take on Phil Hawes at 9,100 here?
Dude, I love Phil Hawes. I really do. Now, am I in love with his price range? Probably not. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's making his UFC debut, who fell short his first time on the Contender Series and in dramatic fashion, and had a very nice performance in his second invite back to, the Contender Series. He's been a guy that's been really touted for years. Like John Jones was touting him for years.
Mhm.
I remember watching Phil Hawes train back when I was, staying in Albuquerque for a little bit. And I just remember saying, like, oh my God, I thought this guy was just a solid wrestler. His striking's really come so far. Like, he's really, really talented. Now at Sanford MMA, you're surrounded by talented coaches. He's really matured. Facing a guy who's only 4-0, trains with Robert Whitaker. Malkoon's tough, has probably the jiu-jitsu advantage, but overall MMA game and grappling, it's Phil Hawes for me. I just think that he's fought the better competition. He's seen the bright lights. He's ready for an opportunity like this. 9100, I really like Phil Hawes.
Yeah, it's one that I was kind of, as I was kind of put it, as I was in Fantasy Cruncher, put in my exposures, I was like, man, how much Phil Hawes do I want to have?
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, I don't want to be overweight on him.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful, right? Tread carefully, because debuting fighter, technically, because he was only on the Contender Series, facing another, debuting fighter. So what are you going to get? I mean, we've seen people in quarantine step up on short notice and really, really deliver. And, that unknown factor really works to people's advantage. Like, especially in a situation like this, his teammate, Robert Whitaker, you know what I mean? Like, people get motivated by certain things, and motivation's a real factor behind, performance. Definitely is. But it's Phil Hawes for me. I really like him. I think he's a strong play.
Yeah, Phil Hawes is a guy that, I feel like I've been talking about him for like 8 years.
Yeah.
He's been a guy that's been on everyone's radar for that long.
He's so good. He really is. I'm so happy. Like, I love it when I hate seeing prospects, really go off the tracks, right? Especially if it's due to mismanagement. But I love the comeback story. Like, I love seeing them start to finally grow into themselves. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you have a special talent here.
Then we got a female matchup that was initially supposed to be Lauren Murphy versus Cynthia Calvillo. However, Calvillo tested positive for COVID-19 last week, and now we got a UFC debuter here, Shakarova. She's 7,400 on DK, 8,800 for Murphy. Then over on FanDuel, $19 for Murphy, $11 for her opponent. Then over on SuperDraft, 1.15 times for Murphy, and Shakarova, 1.55 times.
Yeah, man. Murphy should win this fight based on her ranking in the division, what she's done lately. If you're a Murphy, you've been around the UFC and been around women's MMA for quite some time. You don't lose to a debuting fighter. Now, I don't really think Murphy's that good. I think she's okay everywhere. And I do think that Shakarova does present some problems. But Shakarova is replacing Calvillo, who Calvillo has very, very strong grappling. And I think that went, under the radar against the Jessica I fight. And now really people are starting to understand how strong of a grappler she is. So Murphy, I would imagine this whole camp was working on takedown defense. Shakarova has, a lot of, grappling in her arsenal as well, former national champion in wrestling. So the takedowns will be there. 7,400 is enticing, but debuting fighter fighting, 5-4 Lauren Murphy, who in the UFC, Lauren Murphy should win the fight. I mean, she really should, but I will sprinkle Shakarova in based on the takedowns. I mean, takedowns, if you have a wrestler under 8K, you have to be on notice. You have to, Jason, because you talk about 3 takedowns, you get a couple advances, they're gonna break the slate 100%.
Yeah, Andrew brought up the point. He goes, I have a sick feeling Lauren Murphy is going to break the slate.
I don't disagree. I think that, this is a matchup that is like a toxic matchup. It's like a toxic relationship. You know what I mean? Like, this is like something we gotta pay attention to.
Yeah, look, I would imagine, and I'll be honest with you, I've briefly looked at ownership of what we had. Murphy, I think, especially on, I would say on both slates, I don't think her ownership's going to be something that's going to scare you off. And yeah, I mean, she very well could break the slate here, but you're going to need to finish there. Now, the opening fight of the pay-per-view is a fight that must roster.
Ooh. Oh, I don't know. I'm just so sick and tired of this fight. I feel like I might be biased, Like, we've seen it already. It was scheduled 3 other times. Give it a break. Give it a rest. I don't need to see it again. Stop booking it. I don't care how much they hate it. You know what I mean? Like, some fights are just not meant to happen. Clearly, this is not meant to happen again. I mean, the first one, the stoppage was a little questionable. But, I mean, Kudalaba was hurt. He was hurt, absolutely. Maybe he started to play into being hurt to try to lure in, Ankalaev. But terrible game plan. I think Ankalaev, this is almost the same fight as Volkov-Harris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ankalaev's the better fighter. Kudalaba has that same KO pop, has that same finishing ability, has that same aggression that Walt Harris does, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's going to be a popular, GPP play 100% because you look at a highlight video of Kudalaba, what he's done. But in those highlights, he's walking down lesser men and he's really exposing himself defensively. So I think Ankalaev in a victory, I think that he just really puts on another strong performance. But I have some weird feeling, Jason, that they might be a little tentative. Like neither one of them really want to make a mistake. This fight's been booked 5 times.
Yeah. It's. I was just looking at the prop bets on this one. I just feel like you just take the under 1.5 rounds at plus 105 and just, take it to the bank. I don't think this fight makes it out of the first round.
I think it's a trap. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the most obvious things in the world, right, are traps. And I see what you're saying because we saw it before. But Kudalaba, right, should get smarter and realize, like, I can't go in reckless against a guy that can outclass me. And Ankalaev can outclass him. I mean, he's really talented. Besides the one slip-up against Paul Craig, the guy is super, super talented.
Yeah, I just, look, I think in terms of Ian Kudalaba, I think I'll probably be around 5-10% shares on him in terms of, look, to me, if Kudalaba, whoever wins this fight, I do feel is going to get the finish. I think the only matter is how quickly does the finish come. You don't want a 10-second knockout because that happens. Likely, it's kind of like last week with Syed Nurmagomedov. Yeah, he got a 51-second knockout. It looked great, but he wasn't optimal.
Yeah, it was the Francis Ngannou effect. And, Ankalaev hits, and maybe he's just angry. And he goes out there, hits him a couple times, finishes him, and then you basically just get the first round victory and not too many significant strikes or whatnot. And, the later it goes into the first round, the more happy you will be, especially if it ends like 4:59 of round 1. But, it's a fight that is going to be a popular fight. This could be a contrarian pivot. I think this fight's going to carry some heavy ownership.
People in the chat are basically saying, look for the flyers with the last name ending in a V, and you'll be in a good position.
It's not a bad strategy. My mom's like, every single time we watch the fights or whatnot, she's always favoring people from Russia or Dagestan, whatnot. She's, she knows her stuff.
Yeah. Well, in your family, how can she not?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's in the blood. It's in the blood.
That is true.
But of course, this is the MMA strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. Do want to let you know about today's free MMA premium content over at Awesemo.com, MMA fighter projections. So you can check that out over at Awesemo.com. Also, we talked about it last week. We now have an express pass for only $295. You got to check out that as well, as we just added that over to our premium platform over there at Awesemo.com. And do want to let you know about a giveaway that we have going on right now. If you go over to the Awesemo MMA DFS Twitter account, which is at Awesemo MMA DFS, check out the pin tweet. It's pick the winner between Khabib and Gaethje, and you'll have a chance for a free month of Awesemo Plus MMA. One random winner will be picked among the correct guesses. You must like the tweet and follow both the MMA and our regular Awesemo Twitter account handle. So be sure to check that out right now if you want to win our nice little giveaway that is going on over there. Pete, let's move over to the prelims. We got a heavyweight matchup that is going to be the feature preliminary matchup. And how do you trust either one of these guys?
I don't know how you can trust either one of them, Jason. Now, let me propose a question to you. which fight do you think is more pivotal and more essential? Volkov Harris or Struve Tuivasa? And we're talking about GPP performance. We're not talking about confidence in a picker or whatnot. Which fight do you think is the more likely fight to end up in GPPs?
Ooh. My gut says Struve Tuivasa.
That's what I'm saying. When I was breaking down the card, I look at salaries last, right? I think that this fight is extremely pivotal for GPPs. I think that you have to look at this fight. I would almost consider this a must roster fight. And the reason is because, Stefan Struve has so many gifts, man. He really does. He's a skyscraper, has reach, doesn't know how to use it, but
I was going to say that, like, he doesn't have the tools of knowing how to use that reach.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you teach him, he just, does not use his advantages. And if the guy ever really worked on front kicks, calf kicks, straight punches, knees up the middle, I really don't see too many people beating him. I mean, he has a ground game better than a lot of people in the heavyweight division as well that he can resort to. The problem is, he backs himself up sometimes. He gets cornered and he gets hit with big looping shots. And, Tai Tuivasa may not be the most skilled guy. He's 3-3 in the UFC, did have a ton of hype, has dropped several in a row now. He has KO pop, man. He really does. And both these guys make plenty of mistakes. Tuivasa has been training his takedown defense like crazy. But guess what? I still think if Stefan Struve wants to take him down, he takes him down and subs him pretty easily. Gets some crazy points based on transitions and ground and pound and all that. I can really see just Struve outclassing him on the mat at 8,300. If he goes that route, Jason, I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, Tai Tuivasa, if he lands a big shot, you probably know Stefan Struve's going down. I mean, he cannot really take too many shots now. Stefan Struve is 13-10 in the UFC. So, man, oh man, volatile matchup. I will hammer my exposure here. As much as it hurts me to say, I feel like Tuivasa clips him. I really do.
And he's been training at AKA leading up to this fight too.
Right, but that's interesting, right? Because he was training at AKA, but we have to think about COVID guidelines, right? Like Khabib, what gyms have shut down? I mean, if you watch the countdown, I know you did. They came in and they forced people out of AKA.
Well, yeah, he was in Abu Dhabi. That's where Khabib did his training. But I mean, look, there's guys who are finding ways to train over there. I think that the question is, and I don't know if you saw our good buddy Randy Costa, he put a tweet out. He said, since there's no fans, John Anik, are you going to do a shoey if Tuivasa wins? And Anik just goes in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love Anik. Anik is one of my favorite people, a part of the UFC.
Bro, I'm never doing a shoey.
Nah, me either.
No.
I'm good.
Like, I want to know, where did that originate from? Like, how drunk was someone who made a bet and go, you know what? If you win this bet, I'll drink out of your shoe. Like, how drunk did you have to be to come with that bet?
It's a pretty genius bet. I mean, it really is. I mean, you could get somebody to agree to that. That's crazy. Jason, this fight, I mean, the odds tell you Struve's a -115, slight favorite. Tuivasa -105. It's a pick'em. It really is. The length, the 9-inch reach advantage for Stefan Struve, that's crazy. That is crazy. The 9-inch height advantage to Struve. I think Tuivasa clips him and hurts him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my brain and the smart play is Struve all day because Struve is the better fighter. Struve is the better overall mixed martial artist. I will probably have more Struve despite me knowing Tuivasa probably clips him.
Will you play it in cash, though?
If I'm playing in cash, I'm playing Struve.
Really?
Yeah, because, I don't really think Tuivasa is that good, truthfully.
Mm-hmm. It's tough to trust either one of these guys. That's my thing. It's tough for me to trust them.
Oh, it's 100%. There's plenty in cash. There's plenty of other fights that I would prefer to have in my lineups. But like, if for some reason roster construction is landing me on this fight, which the salary will, and this is why this is a very, very important matchup. I would lean Struve.
Now, the fight that has me the most interested on the prelims is actually the matchup we're going to talk about next, and that is Casey Kenny and Nathaniel Wood. This is going to be at 140 pounds. This is a great matchup of two 135ers. Casey Kenny coming off that win on Fight Island. He actually came back to the United States, and I asked him about that. I said, was there any thought of staying in Abu Dhabi? He's like, well, my coaches have family, and them sitting in Abu Dhabi for 3 weeks wasn't exactly in the cards for me. But, obviously, Casey Kenny, this is, his last fight, he beat the living crap out of his opponent. Just couldn't get the finish there. This is a great matchup. I just, the price tag on Casey Kenny at 8,700, I just don't know if he pays it off.
This is going to be a very, very closely contested match. It really is. Casey Kenny, 8,700, priced up based on his previous dominant performance. The guy, and he didn't really score that well like he should have for as how dominant it was. I'm pretty sure that it was like several 10-8 rounds in there. Like Casey Kenny was amazing. In this matchup though, Nathaniel Wood is super, super talented. And I think a lot of people could just be forgetting how good he is. Minus that minor setback to John Dodson. The guy is well-rounded. He really is. He has, great striking, great grappling, good jiu-jitsu, good ground and pound, good everything. Guess what? So does Casey Kenny. So it's who can implement their game plan. Casey Kenny being a southpaw, definitely throws a monkey wrench in some things because people don't have the easiest time dealing with southpaws. And it sounds like it's such an easy thing to work on, but it's not. Things come from different angles. I think I might shock some people. I'm backing Nathaniel Wood here. I really am. I think that Casey Kenny is very talented. Casey Kenny's solid striking, solid grappling. I do think that Nathaniel Wood is talented enough to do everything standing up and possibly put him in a bad position on the mat.
Yeah, I was looking at this one as more of a cash game play than was GPP.
Yeah, it doesn't say GPP written on it for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like this fight is going to be so back and forth, right? So maybe the points are just not going to be there because they're kind of nullifying each other. Kenny goes for a takedown attempt, he gets stuff. Wood tries it, he gets stuff. I would imagine Kenny likes to stand and bang a little bit more, but counter grappling is a thing, and maybe it's a little underwhelming performance for both of them from a DFS aspect.
Let me ask you if you think I am wrong in this one. The fact of Alex Cowboy Oliveira may be the favorite that people are looking going against this week.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think that, Oliveira here at 8,500 is priced up just because the guy has 18 UFC fights. 18 UFC fights priced at 8,500. Shouldn't lose to a debuting fighter. Rachmanov coming in at 7,700. But guess what? Rachmanov, he's not just any debuting fighter. This is a guy that's been hyped up for quite some time. And, a lot of people are really, really high on him. Oliveira is kind of a guy that I've just thought was, he's okay. He's underperformed in some situations, overperformed. The guy is talented. If he can kind of fix his cardio issues and balance his aggressive striking with dominant grappling, the guy can be a force. He really can. But he makes plenty of mistakes on the feet. And, Rachmanov here, he throws bombs. He hurts people. He has good submissions, decent takedown defense, good counter grappling. But, I am favoring Rachmanov. He's probably one of my favorite, if not the favorite, 7K option for me. And I think that's probably going to be a chalky play.
I got to imagine at $14 on FanDuel, that's got to be one of your favorite under $15 plays.
Yeah, I think that's on FanDuel. That's a nice little check for me. It's not an easy fight by any means. It's really not. Oliveira has beaten plenty of UFC talented fighters, but Rachmanov, he hits so hard he can change the fight with one strike. He's just aggressive, and me, I like to target aggressive guys. Now, I will say that on watching tape, Rachmanov has been wobbled in the past. I have seen him wobbled. I have seen him taken down because guess what? He hunts guillotine chokes. And if you hunt guillotine chokes a little bit too much, you're susceptible to getting double legged and taken down easy. because you're hunting that finish. And then if you don't get it now, you're on your back. So Oliveira needs to go the grappling route if he plans on winning here.
Next up, we'll move along to Sam Alvey, who I just can't roster. There's just no way I can roster him.
I don't blame you. I mean, Da Un Jung here, 9,400. Talk about being priced up. A guy who's only 2-0 in UFC. I think it's more of fading Sam Alvey at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Alvey, 10-9, comes in at 6,800, Jason. The guy, Sam Alvey, is just deceptive. And what I mean is he hits you from odd angles and makes fights closer than they should be. Sam Alvey, like, there are plenty of fights that he shouldn't be competitive in, and he really is. But in saying that, he's on a really rough patch right now. Like, I can't remember the last time I felt confident about Sam Alvey. I mean, but, Sam does have that power to really change the fight. And at 6,800, Jason, if this is going to be a striking match, and somehow the judges think that he, that they favor it towards him, if he gets 65 points at 6,800, depending on how the slate goes, he could break the slate. So I will actually sprinkle him in. But as far as confidence, Da Un Jung's a killer, man. Like, he's got KO power. He's so talented. He's the play. Da Un Jung is the play.
So the last time Sam Alvey landed more than 60 significant strikes in a fight, you got to go back 4 years, bro.
Who was it against? Spicely?
Alex Nicholson.
My goodness. That's what I'm saying. Like,
so this is so I'll just go down the fight. So split decision loss against Ryan Spann, 57 significant strikes. Unanimous decision loss against Abreu, 28 significant strikes. He got knocked out by Crude, only landed 3 in that one. Got knocked out by Rogerio Nogueira in the second round, landed 34 there. Split decision against John Vellante, 53 strikes. He got the knockout win against Pratchino. Then he had a unanimous decision loss against Razan, only 29 significant strikes landed. He only landed 40 significant strikes against Rashad Evans in a split decision. I mean, there's a trend you're going down there. This is a guy that just doesn't throw volume. That's why I'm just like, I see Sam Alvey and I'm like, I want no part of it.
I don't blame you. I mean, like, I play multiple lineups, and I know you do too. I'll take a shot on him because if Da Un Jung wants to win this fight, he will force his hand, right? Sometimes, like, Da Un Jung's going to go get in your face and really throw bombs to try to finish you because the guy has great finishing ability. A 92% finish rate out of 13 victories is pretty damn good, Jason. So, Sam Alvey doesn't want to be an everlast punching bag and just sit there and take shots. So if Da Un Jung forces his hand, Alvey's going to have to counter more than he may be used to, which could possibly elevate his score. But that's like a, 1 time out of 10 type of deal for me.
Yeah. To me, it's a fight where I'm paying up for Jung or I'm just passing. I just,
totally fair.
I can't roster Sam Alvey. Then we got Jojua versus Maverick, and I know when I was doing some crutches earlier today, Miranda Maverick was she was coming up big time.
Yeah, I don't know if I will really pay 9,300 for her. I'd rather pay Khabib or Phil Hawes for me, just because I know what I'm getting. And women's MMA is slightly more unpredictable than other divisions. Maverick, especially because she's making her UFC debut. Don't know what you're going to get. UFC nerves are a real thing. Now you're talking about UFC nerves over in Abu Dhabi, possibly on one of the biggest cards ever. So you don't want to bank on the fight so much, but it is a very nice matchup. The girl's extremely talented. She's really shown that she could be dominant, and she's a very well-rounded fighter, striking, grappling, jiu-jitsu. Jojua's chance is take her down and work towards a submission. Truthfully, that's really her only shot. But based on their finishing rates, Jason, 71% from Maverick, 88% from Jojua, I would definitely target this fight. I just might be a little bit underweight on the ownership of Maverick and pivot to some other 9K options, but she's a quality play for sure.
Of course, appreciate everyone who's here on a Wednesday night. Watch us live here. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Also, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, so you know when a new show is up here on Awesemo.com. And we'll let you know live before lock early, 9 a.m. East Coast time on Saturday, leading you up to the first fight, which will be at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So do I got to see you a little wake-up call in the morning, make sure you're up?
Would you say 9 or 9:30?
9 a.m.
All right, perfect. So I will have coffee in hand. I will be probably half asleep, but nah, I'll be good. I'm excited, man. I can't wait. I'm pumped for this card. It's a little interesting that they chose the biggest card ever. Well, one of the biggest cards ever to put it on in the afternoon.
There's one reason only.
It's because of Khabib's.
They want Khabib in prime time in Russia.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because of his fan base. And I just think it's interesting that they didn't try just one other, but it makes sense. I know plenty of people that will not be tuning in or are slightly disappointed because of the time, so that stinks. But
bro, I'm all for it, man. I am all for it. We could do this every week.
I don't care. I don't care. I wouldn't mind.
Bucks don't play till Sunday night, so like I can go out and do whatever I want on Saturday night. I don't gotta get up early on Sunday. I'm all good. I'm good with this.
Are you? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear you, man. I can't wait. It's gonna be a great Saturday. I'm excited. So make sure. I mean, things can change, guys. So especially with Chandler being there, we don't know what can happen. We'll definitely have our updated picks and updated analysis post weigh-in. So make sure you tune into us Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Put it on your alarms.
Yeah, my usual Saturday morning routine, go out and get some breakfast, and usually I'm preparing for the NASCAR show, but got to prepare for MMA a little bit before that. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to it here on Saturday. Now we got one more fight here left to talk about, and that'll be Alvarez and Yakovlev. Alvarez 9,000, Yakovlev 7,200. I feel like Alexander Yakovlev is going to be another guy that's going to be a little popular here.
I feel like this card is pretty juicy from an underdog standpoint, right? Like, I don't care about odds, right? I throw the odds out the window for me because I'm a fighter and I know how little that means, but there's a reason they're out there. And, Alvarez's odds are based on his last performance against Duffy. I mean, the guy is a finisher. He is so talented. Comes in at 9,000, has a great 17-2 record, 100% finish rate. So that is bananas. Now, let me tell you what's a little bit tough, though, is when you are so jiu-jitsu dependent. Mm-hmm. Okay, I train jiu-jitsu a lot as well. But when you are so jiu-jitsu dependent, sometimes you are content with laying on your back. And you're hunting submissions. If you do not get that finishing shot, which Alvarez has in 17 victories, so I can't say much. But if you do not get it, you're losing rounds. In MMA fights, if you're on bottom, you are most likely losing rounds. And Yakovlev could get no respect on this slate and comes in 3-5 in UFC, 25-10 overall. A former 170-pound fighter fought Kamaru Usman, Damian Maia. Neither one of those guys finished him. So it's something interesting to know. And Alvarez doesn't have the best takedown defense because he welcomes it. He welcomes you to get on top so he can work towards triangles and guillotines and all that. So if Yakovlev is able to avoid, these submission attempts, I really like him here at almost minimum salary to get takedowns, to possibly advance and tire out the heavy, not the heavy favorite, but according to DraftKings, he's a heavy favorite, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you look over on FanDuel, $12 for Yakovlev. I think that's interesting. I mean, I think everyone kind of knows my ultimate feeling on the first fight of the night. I really don't like playing it because it just feels like more times than not that I just don't get it right. Of course, you mentioned about the betting odds. If you do want to check out the betting odds, go over to Awesemo.com right there at the top of the page. You'll see Odds Shopper. You can click there and you can shop around the various books to find out where you want to make your bet here for Saturday, UFC 254. Of course, as I mentioned, we will be here 9 a.m. East Coast time on Saturday morning, leading you up to UFC 254. Of course, I know everyone likes to hear our straight up picks, and I really want to pick the upset in the main event.
Get out of here! You're drinking the Kool-Aid, and like so many people, it's the nice shiny toy. Everybody, like when Cyborg was fighting, everybody wanted to pick the Yana Kunitskaya, thinking that she's the next great. You know what I mean? Like, come on, Justin Gaethje definitely can do it, but
Oh no, my brain says pick Khabib, so I'm gonna go with my brain. But
okay,
but my
all
gut
right.
says like I think this fight is much closer than the betting odds say.
I don't.
If I'm correctly here, I believe Gaethje is a bigger underdog than Conor was.
Well, okay, and the only reason that is because of the hype, and the only reason that is because Conor McGregor has a nation behind him that everybody's betting him. So you know what I mean. That's why the line was like that. But Gaethje definitely has a better shot than Conor does. Than Conor did, I should say. You know, based on nullifying the grappling. I think it's pretty obvious what I like Khabib.
Whitaker, Cannonier, who are you going with?
I am going with Cannonier.
Give me Whitaker.
Okay, I like it. I love it when we disagree because guess what? Even if the listeners disagree with some of our picks, that's what makes picking fighting the best.
All right, I'll go first here on Harris and Volkov. Give me the big ticket.
Yeah, you're out of your mind this week. Volkov.
We're a little. Remember, these are straight up picks too.
Okay? Yeah, these aren't DFS related.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna both agree here. Phil Halls.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll both agree here. Lauren Murphy.
Yeah. I think that's a closer fight than what people are thinking.
Give me Ankalaev over Kudalaba.
Yeah, Ankalaev.
Man, Struve Tuivasa.
Flip a coin, bro.
I can't trust the chin of Stefan Struve. Give me Tyler Tuivasa.
Oh, give me Stefan Struve's ground game.
Kenny versus Wood. I like Casey Kenny in that one.
Give me Wood.
Wow, we are.
I don't think we've really disagreed this much. I kind of like it.
Cowboy and I'm going against Cowboy here.
Yeah, I'm going Rachmanov.
Yeah. Well, I've already told you I can't trust Sam Alvey, so you know where I'm going there. Give me
Dalvin Young for me as well.
Give me Miranda Maverick against Jojua.
Maverick as well.
And first fight of the night, smart play I think is to take Joel Alvarez.
I'll go Yakovlev.
Wow,
I think we broke records today. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm excited, man. I think you guys can tell that I'm pumped up. If you found this video helpful, if you like us, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you guys check us out on Saturday. I cannot wait for this. Cannot wait to answer questions. Just talk fighting. You know what I mean? Like, I just love it.
Yeah, we're going to go through the questions right now. Going to hop over to Slack here momentarily. Jordan says, would be very hard for Gaethje to pay off if Khabib has him on the ground the whole time. No question.
Yeah.
Where I think the value in Khabib is, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, is Gaethje constantly getting up and just getting taken right back down.
Yeah. Like, for me, right, what I'm thinking, minus, say we see something on the weigh-ins, like say Khabib looks horrible. I will tell you that Khabib, in my opinion, does look like he's a little tired, and I think that could be stress related. I can see it in his eyes a lot, based on interviews and everything. I can just kind of read it on him. I hope it doesn't affect his performance, but Gaethje's got to control distance. If Gaethje controls distance, then he should be in a better position to win.
Yeah. Let's see here. Gotta scroll down here. Some of these questions we already kind of got to a little bit. Khabib by submission or by KO more likely?
I'm saying TKO.
Yeah, I would say TKO as well. The thing with Gaethje is there's just so much unknown with him on the ground. It's just you don't know.
He's good. But guess what? So is every Dagestani teammate, Dagestani fighter that Khabib has encountered. You know what I mean? Like, they have the best grappling on the planet. They really do.
Samuel's asking for his usual questions. Top two favorites
to win.
Give me Ankalaev and Hawes. I probably feel most confident about them in their spots.
Khabib and Hawes for me.
Top two underdogs.
Well, What?
Rachmanov's got to be one of them, right?
Yeah, Rachmanov is one, and then I think I'll go Yakovlev.
Give me Walt Harris.
Oof.
Why are you hating on the big ticket?
I don't know.
Because you're worried if it gets out of the first round?
Yeah, I just see like I think Volkov's really good.
Upset of the night.
Nathaniel Wood.
Okay. I would say Justin Gaethje.
Yeah. You're really saying that, huh?
You heard me?
Man.
You heard me? Put that American flag on, baby.
I think, and I could be completely way off. And if you disagree with me, that's completely fine. That's why I respect everybody's opinion about it. I don't think it's going to be a close fight. I don't think it's going to be a close fight. There's no way that I'm avoiding one of the best pound for pound fighters ever.
Here's what my concern is, and really it goes back to watching the countdown show where Javier Mendez is having to scream out, "Stick to father's plan, stick to father's plan." And I mean, look, I think that one of the things that I believe Javier Mendez and AKA do not get enough credit for is what they have done with Khabib Nurmagomedov and his striking over the last 8 years. I mean, when you go back and you look at what Khabib was when he got into the UFC striking wise to what he is now, it's night and day. It's a completely different fighter. I mean, look, I'm sure Javier Mendez has made it very well known. We're not getting into a kickboxing matchup. I think that one of the interesting parts of this fight is one of Justin Gaethje's biggest offensive tools is his leg kicks.
Yeah.
How much will we see the typical Justin Gaethje, or will he slow down on those leg kicks because of the wrestling abilities?
Yeah, so let me explain something. So like I'm a striker, obviously, so a lot of my opponents are always looking to take me down, right? So you have to be very selective with your kicks. Body kicks are almost eliminated from the plan as the fight goes on, because those are so easy to catch and wrap you up. Leg kicks on the thigh are questionable, and the reason they're questionable is because of how easy it is to trap that leg to you and drive into either a single leg, a high C, or an easy double. And Khabib has been practicing that all camp. I guarantee you, catching a leg kick and driving. What Justin Gaethje needs to do is lower that leg kick and go calf kick. You either want to go calf kick or head kick, and if he does either one of those, he will find success. Other than that, man, you're playing with fire right there. You really are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'll probably have about 30% shares of Justin Gaethje.
Ooh. I'm not avoiding it. I'm not going to avoid him, but I'm taking a firmer stance on Khabib.
I don't want to be overweight. Like, if you sit there and said Khabib's ownership is 59%, I'll probably be somewhere between 50 and 55. I'm not going to be overweight on the field.
I mean, so if say I'm doing 150 lineups, right? I'm not going to put 130 with Khabib just because it's going to, limit me. It really is. I kind of want to make sure I have some, something to cover all my bases. And, but if I'm playing, say, 20 lineups, I'll probably take a firmer stance on one or the other.
Miles says, trying to pay up for Khabib in most of my FanDuel lineups. Who is the most affordable fighter to target constructing Khabib lineups with? So looking on FanDuel, so I think we got to look at 14 and under. So let's just kind of look at those fighters. You got Jacob Malhoun at $10, Sakharova at $11, Kutalaba at $9, Wood $13, Rachmanov $14, Alvey $8, Jajua 9, and Yakovlev 12. Yakovlev is interesting at 12. You mentioned about Nathaniel Wood. That's an interesting one. If Kutalaba wins, it's going to be by knockout. That would definitely, he would become optimal at that point. That's a tough thing of rostering Khabib on FanDuel.
Yeah. I would say for me, out of those fighters, I think Rachmanov at 14 is a bargain based on his skill set, based on what he can do. The guy is 12-0 with 12 finishes, Jason. Now, granted, he hasn't really fought UFC level competition. This is a big step up facing Oliveira, but the skills are skills. Skills pay the bills, and I think that he has plenty.
We got a question about stacking the main event. Neither one of us are huge on stacking the main event in general. I think the only way you can stack the main event here is if you think that Gaethje is going to be able to stop the takedowns and keep the fight on the feet.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we talked about before, is that you have to basically provide the narrative to why you're stacking it, right? Like how you think it's going to go. It's kind of like for me when I'm making NFL lineups, it's very impossible to try to predict game flow, but it can sometimes help you if say you put an offense in there that they're probably going to be playing from behind, so they're probably going to air it out, right? In a situation like this, Gaethje needs to do a lot. Gaethje just needs to win the fight to probably break the slate. Khabib and Gaethje together, now you're talking about a completely different dynamic where Gaethje, if you're including Khabib and Gaethje, right? Khabib needs to outperform that 9,200. So he needs to win, but it needs to be like razor thin close. And for my money, I don't think it's really going to be that close.
Andy says favorite MVP on FanDuel other than Khabib, Ankalaev for me.
On FanDuel, huh? I think I would. God, FanDuel's so tough, bro. I think Ankalaev's a good play. I'm going to back you on that.
Yeah. What fights are we excited to target? Main event's an easy one to target.
Co-main too.
That concerns me. It doesn't pay off to be optimal in GPPs. I think it's more of a cash game play. And then
their styles, though, I feel like, I don't know. We'll have to see, but I'm going to be targeting that fight.
Like when I look at fights, I believe will end in finish. The main event: Volkov Harris, Ankalaev Kutalaba, Struve Tuivasa. Those would be my most confident picks of end and finish.
What's the line at this week, Jason? What are you setting the line at for finishes?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, we got 12 fights right now. Let's set it at 5.5.
This card really Oh man, that's a damn good line. You're a bookie. I'm gonna say under.
Okay, all right. I hope you're wrong.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna finish with this question. Miles goes: would it make sense to target both Wood and Nurmagomedov in Khabib lineups?
Wood, and I kind of like it. I mean, Wood is talented. Wood is very talented. The problem with that matchup is it's an even fight. It really is, and they're gonna nullify each other's strengths. You could literally see each minute. Can he win a minute? Would win a minute. Can he win a minute? You know what I mean? Like so back and forth. It's probably my favorite fight on the card from a viewing aspect. But I would temper expectations. But Wood, when you talk about talent, 82% finish rate out of 17 victories. Outside that John Dodson loss, man, people were hyping him up as being, top 10 talent, and I really do think that he's there.
Yeah, it's it should be a good night of fights. Looking forward to it. Of course, if you ever have a question for myself and Pete, you can hit us up in our premium Slack account for our premium subscribers. Just message us in there. Also, you can do that on Twitter as well. Of course, you see our Twitter handles there up on the screen. Pete, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Make sure you guys don't forget Saturday. We're on early, okay? Don't sleep in. I don't want to hear no, I slept in. I didn't get a coffee in time. My lineups are locked. I want to see you guys. I want to talk to you guys. I want to answer your questions. I want to see if something changed, who you're backing. All right, come hang out Saturday morning.
And that is going to do it for this edition of the MMA Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com. We will see you on Saturday.